Hello, I'm Richard Orman, the Senior Director of Product Enablement here at Oracle Hospitality. And today we're going to look at some of the rate management tools available within Opera to help you maximize revenue. If we just look back firstly, 20 years ago, the hotel industry really didn't have the roles of a revenue manager or yield manager. It was unheard of. That's because pricing used to be static. It was probably set for a year, known as a rack rate, and didn't really fluctuate. However, today, pricing changes constantly. Could be daily or even hourly. That's because we were following what other industries had done based on consumer spending habits. And one of the main areas that led this was the aviation industry. We just have a quick look here at how an airline sells their flights over 1 week. You can see the variation in cost. So here we're off to Lanzarote in the Canary Islands, leaving on a Saturday, returning on a Monday for one person. We can see a variation here of 605 flying on a Saturday, down to 184 the following Sunday afternoon. And the return leg again, we start at 241, and those fares drop down to £60 just purely on changing the day we're flying. This is because airlines brought in yield system to look at demand and then be able to flex their fares accordingly. But airlines also use then ancillary revenue, items that used to be included in the fare to then increase the overall selling price. We can have a look here, the flexi price. Of all the items that used to be included are now built in extra to the rates. Does this complexity take more time to set up? No, actually, some of this setup actually makes setting up Opera much quicker. But the first question we have to ask is, should we bundle or unbundle our packages? So a package within Opera is something that's either included or excluded within a rate. It could be breakfast, it could be dinner, it could be car parking, Wi-Fi, and generally these have traditionally been built into a rate. But what we're finding is more hotels are now unbundling their price. So the customer sees the headline price for the room, then has the option to add in anything extra they think that brings value to their stay at the property. Again, some of the budget hotels have been doing this very successfully for many years. We're now seeing this occur in some of the more luxury properties where they want to add in things like airport pickup, champagne on arrival, and so on. We can have a look here that just adding a few items like breakfast, dinner, early check-in can almost double the room rate and makes the total price the customer pays and the revenue you get higher. This is all because your headline price may be lower than your competitors. So setting this up in Opera is very straightforward. We give you the flexibility of how you want to derive your rates. Is it per person, per room, per child? And also the posting rhythm. Do we have this just on the arrival night? Is it certain nights of the week? Is it on the 5th, 7th, or 8th day of the stay? Do we want to post it based on a formula? Or is it something called a floating allowance per stay? All of these allow you to customize how this package should be consumed by the customer. And we also give you the option to specify a start and end time. If you want to offer, say, an early bird dinner, which is only available between 5 and 7, you can put in a start time. We can flag it as being cell separate and then add to rate, combined or separate line, or included in the rate. This then determines how that is sold to the customer. Is it included in the headline room rate price? Is it something the customer can buy on top? And then with the pricing, we can specify date ranges of how much it should be. Is there a minimum duration the customer has to stay, or is there a maximum number of guests the customer has to have with them? All of this gives you the flexibility to help increase your room revenue, but also encourage customers to look at your room price and then add in what helps them. Some of the tools we can also do here, such as using item inventory. So item inventory is a good way of making sure you sell certain value of these. This could be used for things like car parking. So if you have offer long stay car parking at the airport, you could say we have 10 spaces available. You can do that through here. Or things like early check-in. You want to be able to offer the option for customers to arrive, say, 2 hours early. We can flag that as early check-in and then limit the number we can sell per day. Again, increasing how much your customers spend in their total room rate. But then moving on to step 2 is choosing the rate type that fits your hotel's operation. And there are multiple different ways of doing this within Opera. And we don't expect anyone to use all of them. We have the standard rate. This is the old-fashioned rack rate, where basically the price is set for a duration of time and it doesn't really fluctuate very more. However, the daily rates is the one that we've seen the greatest change of people using over the last few years. And this mirrors what we just saw with the airline, where the price per day is changing constantly. We'll have a look at some of these items now. So let's have a look at daily rates. Daily rates give you a price per room type per day. You can update them instantly, or you can set them in per day or per range of dates. It saves time, and it allows you the option then to use advanced daily rates. Just having a quick look here at a rate code then. So this one we've set up as a daily rate. I can see all the pre-configured rates that we've already got set up in the system. So it's £85 and £92 for executive rooms. If I want to, I can then just go and edit and change an individual day and that room type. So here I've changed two to be £84, another to 78. And it gives me an option there to edit just where I need to, or I can go and set a range. And a range is if I know there's a particular change happening in the area, I want to affect that change across all my different room types. I can go in, I can then replace what's in there, or I can add or subtract from the existing rate. So if I want to add an extra £10, $10 and so on, I could do that, or I can overwrite what's already in place. And that then automatically reflects those rates. And then anything that's derived off that rate will automatically be updated to show that room change and the pricing change for you. So daily rates really enables you to act on the fly and ensure if something happens, you can adapt your pricing instantly without having to go back and change other variables within the rate codes. Something I just mentioned there, though, was about having rates derived off other rates. And that brings us into base rates. Base rates provide multiple rates being derived off one rate code. It saves you the time of doing the maths of what's 10% off this or it's $15 more and so on. Any changes you make to the original base rate then automatically update the dependents. And this is where we're talking about saving time, saving you having to do the work of having to recalculate your rates. Have a look here at a base rate. So I've got a local corporate rate and a national corporate rate. I can look at the rate code type. So this one's just a standard rate, but I can see it has the dependent rate of national corporate or the M Corp rate. If I look at my pricing schedule here, quite straightforward. It's £100 and £110 with an extra charge of £10. If I then go and have a look now at my national corp rate, which is based off the local corp, and I edit that one, in the rate code type, I can then say this is a base rate. What is that rate based off? And is it then an amount or a percentage? This one is 15%. It could also be you could also put in £15 or $10, whatever value you want to. I can see then my price is automatically updated to reflect that variation based on what we had on the local corp. And remember, all I ever have to do is update my local corp and my national corp rate is automatically updated. However, you may not want the variation to always be the same amount, so it's not always 10%. This is when we can use our dynamic base rates. And dynamic base rates provide you more flexibility when you derive a rate, and it gives you the data control if the variation is per day, per room type, or of the offset. So let's have a look here at my bar RO room rate, my best available room rate only. Let's go and edit that one. And if I look here, it's available. If I look at the rate code type, we can see this is flagged as a daily rate. I've got lots of different rates based off it as dependent rates. So I've got my advanced room only rate. I can also see I've got my bar 10 rate. So if we have a quick look at the pricing schedule then for this rate, I can see all my variations set in there for the different room types for different days of the week and so on. Now, if we can have a look at one of those rates which is derived off that, which is my advanced room only rate, and I do the same thing as before, I go back and edit that. I can see my rate code type that this is a dynamic base rate. It's based off bar room only, and it's a 10% by default value off the dynamic base rate. So this is just like the previous one we saw before. And actually on the rate itself, we don't set any values at all. because it's automatically updating based off what's on the bar RO rate. If I have a look now at my bar 10 rate, this one is slightly different. So I'm going to have a look again at the rate code type. And this one is now set as an advanced dynamic base rate. And you can see it's based off the bar RO, but there's no question here about do you want to base this in value or do you want to do it as a percentage? So if I look at my pricing schedule now, I can see I have an offset value. And for certain days it's 10%, other days it's 5%, or it could be a value. So this is where we were saying before, if it's not always 10%, you can go use the advanced dynamic base rate and then specify per date or per room type or a combination how much that offset should be from the bar rate. And you also get the option here to actually specify a value if you want to completely ignore what was on that base rate. When I go in and set that up, I then say, what is my offset? Is it an amount or do I want to use an offset? If I'm using the offset off the base rate, is it a flat amount or is it a percentage? Or do I want to use an amount itself and say for 1 hour in a room, it's 100. So ignore whatever's on the base rate. All this gives you the flexibility to have one rate that then derives and controls multiple other rates and saves you so much time in configuring your rates and amending it whenever you do your rate reviews. But one of the biggest issues hotels have seen over the last few years is corporate bookers not using that assigned rate. They've always been going on the hotel website or Booking.com, Expedia, and other vendors to look at what was available then instead of booking their own derived rate. So we introduced some functionality to ensure that corporate bookers always get the best price on their rate and never have to go and book directly on a different website. So this is something called dynamic base rates, and it also works exactly the same way as the other rates. However, we now put a control in place. So if we're going to look at how the rate code type in here, I can see it's a dynamic base rate, it's 10% less than the advanced daily rate. I had a compare with rate detail box ticked. So what that does is I set in a maximum price I should pay for that room per night. So here it's 185. If the room rate of the derived rate is more than that, then Opera will then take whatever you set up on that rate code. So here I can see my rates for that day is 150. On the first, it's 150. The second is 200. So on the second, if my rate's 185, that's less than 200, I should use the 200. On the first, however, as my rate set up is 150, it's cheaper than 185, so let's use that 150. So I'm going to make a reservation now quickly in the front office. And let's go to my look to book screen. Put in the property I'm wanting to book. Let's enter my date range. So we'll do the 2nd of September. 7 nights. And just enter the rate code I want to book. I can see when the rates are returned. The first day we have a rate change because, of course, the rates are going to vary. If I scroll down, I can see there my first night's 185, and the others are then using the discount to be 140. So I never pay the 200 because that was more than my contracted rate. Doing it this way ensures your corporate bookers always use their corporate rate, but they can be guaranteed they will never be charged more than their contracted rate. And if the price is lower, they'll get that lower rate. Some other tools available to hoteliers are tiered rates. And this is particularly useful for apartments or long stay rentals. The longer the stay, the difference the price. Again, we can set up different tiers. So you might have a 1 to 3 night, 4 to 8 nights, and so on. Those are all configurable per property. We configure the rate code type as tiered. And then my pricing schedules have a slightly different look to the screen. At the top, we have a tiered ID, where here I've got 1 to 3 days. So I can see if I book these rates, it's 150. If I do 4 to 6 nights, it's 140. If I look at 7 to 12 nights, we currently haven't got any rates configured. So all I need to do is go and press new. And for 7 to 12 nights, I put in my date range of when this is valid from, or I could use a season code if you work with more seasons, the days of the week that this rate should apply for, and then how much you want to charge per room or per adult in that room. I then specify the room types that are bookable on this. So I'm going to use my classic rooms here. I do select and save. So now I have an additional third tier available for people staying 7 to 12 nights, okay, which should be 125. So if I was staying 9 nights, I would now get the 125 rate. If I was just staying 2 nights, I'd get the 150 rate. So again, it's not changing during the stay, it's the duration of the stay which then derives that rate. So a great little tool there for customers wanting to run long stay apartments and offer more value to their customers. We also give you the option of doing free nights. So free nights is when the promote allows you to choose when the customer should get the free night and are there any eligibility requirements. And also can it reoccur during the duration of the stay, especially useful in resorts. We have a look here at this wedding rate. So we've set this up, it's all configured, but with our financials area, we can go and set up how often this should get charged. You can specify the date range, so it might be something only want to offer certain times of the year, and also how many nights, the customer should stay within the property, and how many nights they get free. If we have a look here, we call this the 5 for 2, so 5 nights for the price of 2. We can specify the number of nights, and then how many nights they get free. We can also say, can this be repeated? So for example, if the customer is staying for 14 nights and the rule is 5 nights and get 2 free, would they be able to have those for the 14-night duration of their stay? We have a look here at making a reservation again. So we can do this for 7 nights. I'll put in that rate code that we're just using, the wedding rate. I get to see again, there's a price change on there, so it's $290. If I just look down at daily detail, I can see my last 2 nights there are at 0 because those are my 2 free nights based on the booking 5 nights originally. There's many different options available within Opera to configure and control your rates. We provide more flexibility than any of our competitors, and this allows you to do things like pricing per room or per person, having occupancy-based pricing, having the ability to have children free in a room or based child pricing, or the maximum number of children in a room and work out different pricing based on their age, and make the same booking requirements. So let's have a look here under our pricing schedules. This will take us into the setup of the rate. We can see if we're going to edit, we get the option to then copy this, split it, or we just want to go and edit it. Here we can see the duration of the change, the number of the days of the week it's valid, the price per adult, and also do you get a child free? So for every 1 child in the room, there's 2, you can have the second child is free. Or do we want to do child rates by age? And again, these groupings you could determine. Or do we want to charge per child in their own room? So if we have a family room with the children in one room and the parents in the other, how much do you want to charge for the child in their own room? We can also do things like occupancy threshold pricing. So based on the number of people in a room, how much extra do you want to charge? Particularly more available in apartments and long stay rental properties. And we can also add packages on there for a particular room rate or room type. With the adults, there's just an example here. We don't have to specify a second and third adult. If it's price per room, we just put in that first adult. Some of the rate controls in the distribution area can specify for this rate, is there a minimum occupancy? Good example here is a Valentine's package. You wouldn't want a minimum as 1, you want the minimum as 2 people in the room. We can also specify the minimum number of nights you have to stay, if the number of days you have to book in advance. And some of the other restrictions and rules you can put in place appear on the rate code definition. We have a look in here, we can see basically what sort of date ranges this can be sold from, the market code by default and the source code that this falls under, and also the display set. And this is something we brought in with Opera Plan more recently, this ability to group rates into display sets. Another thing that can take time is managing restrictions. So why not give yourself some space and get Opera Cloud to do it itself and manage opening and closing its rate. It's probably a very underutilized area, but it can save you so much time in managing your rates. With a rate strategy, you can put different rules in place so that if something or occupancy happens to reach a certain value, that then this rate is closed or open. So for example here, we're saying, okay, if occupancy is less than 80% on these day ranges, on these particular dates, then have this rate code open. Example here is an employee B&B rate or a friends and family rate. We want to have that open if our occupancy is less than 80%. You can put different rules in place that if something happens, then now say, make the minimum length of stay X number of nights and so on. You can do this by rate code, by rate category, or the property. And we can then close that out also by room type and room class. We can put dates when this should be valid, or how far in advance we want to manage this. So do we want to manage this sort of 14, 28 days in advance? So this is a great example because if occupancy is less than 80%, we want to keep selling this rate. However, if another criteria is reached, then we want to close this rate out. So here, the reverse, if occupancy reaches 80%, we now want to close this rate out. But you don't have to close it. You can put a restriction in place to say no length of stay is now 2. We can also limit the number of times a rate can be sold. So for example, here, if we sold this once, keep it open. If we sold it twice, now close the rate. Always have to remember though, if we have a close, we need to have an open. So if someone cancels a booking, it will then reopen that rate. And there's so much more you can do with this rate strategy. We can also put rate strategies in place to increase the price. So if the occupancy reaches 20%, then on certain rate codes, add on $5. For each is 30%, add on another $5 and so on. So there's many different tools available to you with rate strategies. And it saves you having to monitor what's coming into your system, and will close out those rates on your behalf. So there's many other areas available within Opera Cloud and Opera itself that we've not had a chance to look at today. Things like date type promotions, restrictions, and hurdles. All of those and lots more information are available on our documentation website. That's docs.oracle.com. Click on industries, go to the hospitality section, and under hotels, you have the Opera Cloud services section. You can click on the release that's more relevant to you, and then go to the user guide. And within the user guide, you have links to all the various material available, including how to set your rates up, how to set up packages, and other areas you may have not considered setting up within Opera itself. And for our customers who are still using the Opera 5 version, again, the same information is available for them. Again, it's within docs.oracle.com under industries and hospitality. Then on the hotels section, and go to Opera Property Management Release 5.6. And you can then see the user guide. So some of the key takeaways we have from the rates section is there's so much you can do with the rates. Time now to innovate and explore new possibilities with rates, which can open up new revenue streams. Adapt. Is it time to review your strategy and simplify your complex rate structures? And grow. Clarity on pricing helps and gives the customers the flexibility. They know they're getting the best price, and it gives you the confidence to then help and book and grow your own business.